Hello again, YouTube. Lovell Hawes, prior enlisted Marine, military history buff, and just somebody who does a lot of research. And I would be a little remiss if I didn't include in my Tech Talks a recent mission that went to the International Space Station, where it was the first civilian crew, where the Dragon capsule took off from Cape Canaveral and it actually docked with the International Space Station, where these guys are actually getting ready to come back down, and it would actually mark the first time that an all-civilian crew has been up on the flight. Not one military-trained person in the whole crew. No, at least not active military. Usually, they like to keep the pilot as one active military personnel because they usually draw from the pool of test pilots. Because the test pilot, he's accustomed to his equipment misbehaving a little bit and keep his cool under those circumstances. So, it's like a case in point. It's like in the wake of the Apollo 13 disaster. It is spite because Jim Lovell himself was a test pilot and was actually one of the pilots before he was actually mission commander. And, well, if you actually listen to the whole transcript of what Jim Lovell was saying in the height of the accident, where there was the big explosion that ruptured one of the oxygen tanks, that he sounded like he was reading the newspaper. He was cool as can be. Of course, I'm pretty sure his chest was going, because whose wouldn't? But he stayed calm, cool, collected, stuck to his training. Yeah, it's like in all three men that was on that particular mission were cool cucumbers. However, even before Jim Lovell's infamous Apollo 13 mission, there was several missions involved where it was completely automated. In fact, we've been sending probes automated to Mars for several decades. But even before we went and put Neil Armstrong on the moon, we've actually had automated missions that were going to the moon, and we were doing it with less calculating power than, well, that four-function calculator of yours. It was the guidance computer on Apollo 13 was about the size of a standard 15-inch monitor laptop, but it had about the computing power a little bit better than that of a four-function calculator, so it wasn't much to speak of. And so, but even then, the computers of the day were actually able to establish orbit. The entire flight could have been automated. Heck, they were sending chimps before they sang. Um, John Glenn on his orbit, or Alan Shepard. So, basically, with this particular tech talk, we're talking about this being an entirely civilian operation, which means to a degree they actually know enough about what they're doing that they might not need that test pilot there anymore. That they can automate it entirely from the ground consistently and reliably enough that you could go to orbit if you put your mind to it. Wow. That's quite the thing, isn't it? To have a pilot be a little more trained than, say, an FAA pilot, like, say, specially trained. And it's honestly where I think NASA's going anyway. Eventually, NASA's going to become like the FAA. The private companies are going to actually start being able to send people up whenever they want to. You just have to have the right amount of scratch for it. And NASA is going to become kind of this administrative group who's going to invest, kind of um, like the FAA or basically, they're going to investigate accidents. They're going to make sure that your equipment is up to spec as far as safety inspections, things of that nature. Which is honestly where I think it should go anyway, because after all, the private companies are going to want to try and get a bigger chunk of the pie, no matter what they're doing. So as a result, they're going to want to try and make their prices a little more affordable so that way they can get more customers in. They cut down on the cost somewhere. They're going to want to make it so that way their machines are more reliable so that way they can get more out of them between times. They're going to want to try and make sure that they have a good safety record because nobody wants to be on the spacecraft that has a tendency to crash. And that's where I think this is honestly getting ready to go here. I mean, SpaceX is a prime example of that. So it would be nice to be able to one day, and I honestly think this day is actually going to be something that might actually be in our future, within our lifetime kind of future, is that be able to go to the Martian colony because your cousin Ted is over there. And honestly, I believe within the next 5 centuries or so, Mars will actually be independent enough that it might actually want its own independence. Like it would actually want to be self-governing. But that's not within our lifetime. Within our lifetime, I'd honestly think that you'd want to go visit your cousin Ted because he's over there. Or you might want to go live on Mars yourself. Who knows? But when it comes to this tech talk, this particular mission is a stepping stone towards that. And everybody's like, we've gone to the moon. Why haven't we gone to Mars yet? Well, the moon's a lot closer. A whole lot closer. Let's put it to you this way: the sunlight that's hitting us right now was generated 5 minutes ago. Because at the speed of light, it took it 5 minutes to get here. Mars is even farther away than that. Much, much farther away. I think it's like 20 minutes away or something like that. And it's like once you start getting out there to the outermost planets, like say Pluto, it takes light years for the light that the sun is generating right now to reach Pluto. That is insane. We're talking about massive, literally astronomical numbers here. So there's a reason it took 4 days for Neil Armstrong to reach the moon, to actually enter lunar orbit. Now, that was moving very, very fast at the time. Our best missions takes roughly 2 years. So we need to pick up the speed a little bit if we're going to make a reliable trip out of it. And to put that in perspective, it was not as crazy to go across the Atlantic from, say, England to what is now the modern day United States. It took months. So they were able to go across the ocean with sails faster than that. So that gives you a little idea of how much of a pickup of speed we need to get here in order to make it so that way it's a good way to go. We also need to pick up a lot of sustainability once we're there because Mars isn't exactly a friendly bit of territory. And we know quite a bit about what we need when we get there. Just getting there is a hard part. So every little stepping stone is a little bit of excitement for me because of the fact that once we do establish a Mars colony, it opens up many, many possibilities, especially if the colony starts producing things that come back to us, some benefits. And I was like, yeah. And even if they did become an independent planet, like independently governed planet, that trade between the two planets might eventually become a viable thing. Again, there's a lot of things that have to happen before we get there. But this is a stepping stone along the way, one of many along the road, and the road is long. So, It's like this is one of those things that I personally see. This is one of the reasons why I love technological advances. And one of the and there, I'm actually going to bring up a little something called redshifting that NASA actually came up with that it has been experimenting with recently, and I'm thoroughly excited about that. But I'm going to cover this particular mission first. So, four people who are civilians, all civilian crew, first time that's ever happened, gone up to International Space Station, and they weren't just floating around and taking pictures. No, 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 they weren't space tourists or anything. They did some actual work while they were up there. And they're getting ready to come back down. And once they come back down, they're going to do a splashdown like old Apollo 13 style, where they're going to come down, chutes open, and then kaboom, right into the water. And the capsule's just going to float there until they're picked up. Sweet. So, that being said, I'm going to have to remember my next tech talk is going to be about redshifting, and that really has me excited because, whew, that's going to be a quantum leap in our ability if we can actually create a drive system that can use this. Mars, here we come, if that's the thing. Okay. With that being said, I've been Level. You guys have been awesome, and you guys have a good day now.